Friday evening had always been our quiet family space. After a week of grinding through IT tickets and project calls, I looked forward to it. The kids would sprawl out on the rug with their favorite movie I'd half-watch with a slice of pizza in one hand and a LaCroix in the other, and Lauren had been more absent lately even when she was physically present. But I was trying to ignore that. Trying to believe it was just stress or some mid-career burnout. Until I opened our shared Google Calendar. It wasn't even something I meant to do with suspicion. Just habit. I check it every Friday to coordinate the kids' weekend schedules. But right there, in bright lavender font, Lauren's color was a reservation. Cypress Room, Saturday 7 p.m., dinner for two. My thumb hovered over the event like touching it might make it disappear. But it didn't. I tapped it open, hoping maybe I was overthinking it. No additional notes. No guest tags. Just the reservation. I tried to remember if we'd talked about it, and somehow I just missed it. I turned 42 on Saturday. Not a milestone, not one of those big birthdays that calls for fanfare. Still, we usually did something. Even if it was just ordering barbecue and playing Scrabble after the kids went to bed. But this was different. The Cypress Room wasn't the kind of place you go unless you're trying to impress someone. White tablecloths. Low lighting. Pricey entrees. It's the kind of place where everyone speaks in hushed tones and you pretend the wine list isn't confusing. I stood in the kitchen for a moment, staring at my phone, then walked into the bedroom where Lauren was at her vanity, brushing out her hair. She had on that deep red lipstick she usually reserved for events, work galas, fundraisers, the occasional high-stakes presentation. Definitely not a casual night at home. "Hey," I said, keeping my tone casual. "You planning something tomorrow night?" She caught my reflection in the mirror and paused. "What do you mean?" I turned my phone toward her. "The calendar. Says you've got a dinner reservation for two. On my birthday." Her expression didn't change at first. She glanced at the screen, then looked back at her eyeliner like I just asked her about the weather. "Oh," she said with a tight smile. "That? Yeah, it's a work dinner. Got scheduled last minute." I blinked. "At the Cypress Room? On a Saturday night?" "Yeah," she replied too quickly, reaching for her necklace. "Client thing. Dale set it up. It just happened to land on your birthday." I didn't have a choice. There it was. That switch? The subtle reframe where I was suddenly the one who might be making too much of it. It was one of Lauren's gifts, flipping the script so smoothly you almost didn't notice it happening. "So you're having a romantic dinner for two with Dale?" She rolled her eyes. "God, Justin, it's not romantic. It's work. You know how these things go. Do we really have to do this?" "I'm just trying to understand," I said, softer now. "You didn't even tell me." "I meant to," she replied, slipping in her earrings. "It's not a big deal." Except it was. Maybe not the dinner itself, but the fact that she'd felt no need to tell me. That she could schedule a night like that on my birthday of all nights and not think it worth mentioning. "I can handle the kids," I said after a beat. "Go to your thing." She smiled, not at me, but at her own reflection, then grabbed her purse and keys. "Thanks. I'll try not to be too late." She kissed the kids on their foreheads as she passed through the living room and was gone before I could say another word. I stood by the window for a while after the door clicked shut. Her taillights flickered red against the driveway and disappeared into the night. I looked back at the calendar still glowing on my phone. Dinner for two. Not with me. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. I played board games with Ella and Mason, made popcorn that burned slightly at the edges, and watched Shrek 2 for the 5th time this year. I laughed when the kids laughed, but the sound didn't feel natural coming out of me. There was a knot in my chest that no amount of movie quotes or buttered snacks could untie. After they fell asleep on the couch, I carried them to bed one by one. Tucked them in. Stood in the hallway for a long time staring at nothing. I opened her calendar again. She changed the password to our photo storage app a few weeks ago. Said she was cleaning it up. And now that I thought about it, the last time she posted a family photo on Instagram had been, when? January? I scrolled back. Yep. New Year's Eve. After that, it was spa selfies, aesthetic brunches, wine tastings with coworkers I didn't know. We were disappearing. Slowly. Quietly. Like background noise she was tuning out. I returned to the bedroom, now lit only by the warm amber glow of her vanity lights, and sat down on the edge of the bed. Her scent lingered in the room, a perfume I didn't recognize. Not the usual lavender she wore on date nights. Something sharper. Muskier. It smelled like someone else. The silence was deafening. I stared at my own reflection in the mirror across the room and tried to figure out when exactly I'd stopped being part of her story. That night after the kids were asleep, I sat in the darkened kitchen, nursing a warm beer I didn't really want. The calendar event still floated in my mind like an unsent message. Lauren hadn't come home yet. No text. No call. Not even a running late placeholder. Just absence. And it hit differently this time. For months, I'd been ignoring the nagging itch in my brain. Little moments I'd brushed off because I wanted to believe in her, in us. But now they were lining up like dominoes, tipping forward one by one. I remembered the first time she changed her phone password without mentioning it. I'd reached for her phone to answer a spam call while she was making dinner, and the lock screen stared back, uncooperative. Oh, she'd said, too fast. Work made me update it. New security thing. That was 6 months ago. When I asked her what the new code was, she mumbled something about needing to memorize it herself before sharing. She never did. Then there were the weekends. Spa getaways that always overlapped with school projects or family dinners. She used to be the one texting in all caps about forgetting Ella's ballet recitals or Mason's soccer scrimmages. Now she'd nod vaguely and say, I'll try to make it, only to vanish the day before. Always a work thing. Always last minute. It got to a point where I stopped mentioning the missed events. I didn't want to sound like a nag. I wanted to believe she was overwhelmed, not indifferent. But I'd see the same photos on her Instagram later that weekend, her legs stretched out on some sun-drenched lounge chair, mimosa in hand, captioned with something like, finally some me time, woman getting massage. The hashtags were always vague. Hashtag grind, hashtag treat yourself, hashtag reset. Never anything to do with family. Never a trace of us. One time, Mason got sick, high fever, puking everywhere. I called her 3 times. No answer. She texted back 5 hours later with a photo of a pool and a sorry, phone died message. Said she was at a hotel spa. Alone. Needed to decompress. I believed her. Or maybe I wanted to believe her. There's a difference. I didn't say anything that time either. Just told her Mason was okay and cleaned up the mess myself. But that night, when she came home smelling like someone else's cologne, subtle but undeniably masculine, I had to ask. What is that? I asked. You smell like a Hugo Boss ad. She laughed. Must be the guy at the spa. He handed me a towel or something. I nodded like that made sense. Let it go. I told myself I was paranoid. Maybe I was. But I couldn't shake the memory of another night, a couple months ago, when I walked into the room and caught her whispering on the phone. She didn't hear me at first. She was standing near the patio door, her voice soft and rushed. I couldn't make out all of it. Just fragments. I'm so tired of pretending. Pause. They're always needing something. It's exhausting. Pause. No, I can't stay over. Not yet. Then I stepped into view and she jumped. Snapped the call off like it was burning her hand. Smiled. Work call. Sorry, I had to step out, it was too loud in here. I believed her again. Or I tried to. But now, in the quiet of the kitchen, the puzzle pieces were snapping into place with sickening clarity. That call. The missed events. The vanishing photos. All signs I tried to rationalize or bury. Even the way she dressed had changed. Lauren used to live in yoga pants and oversized sweatshirts when she was off the clock. Now, she wore perfectly fitted blouses, high-end heels, and carried herself like she was always walking into a boardroom. And it wasn't just for work. I noticed it most on the weekends when she'd run errands that took 4 hours, coming back with one small bag from a boutique that didn't sell anything we could actually afford on a budget. She wore lipstick to the grocery store, earrings to Target, and always came home with that same tight smile and a whiff of unfamiliar cologne. I'd even stopped trying to initiate affection. When I leaned in for a kiss, she turned it into a cheek press. When I hugged her from behind, she stiffened as if I'd caught her off guard. Her phone was never in sight unless it was face down. Notifications always silenced. If it buzzed while we were eating dinner, she'd slide it into her lap like it was on fire. Just work, she'd say. You don't want to hear about it. I wanted to ask desperately, but something in me hesitated every time. Maybe it was fear. Or denial. Or the hope that this was just a phase. That marriage was supposed to have dips. That one day she'd look at me again like she used to, like I was her home. But she didn't. She looked at me like I was in the way. Like the father of her kids, not her partner. And I hadn't realized how much that hurt until tonight. I stared at the calendar again. Tomorrow, she'd be at the Cypress Room. With someone. Whoever he was, I was sure now he existed. And it was obvious he was giving her something I couldn't. Attention, excitement, maybe just the feeling of being someone new again. That kind of temptation is subtle. It starts small and grows in the silences. In the unmet glances. In the too long weekends and the missing photos. I pulled out my old laptop from the cabinet drawer. The one we used before we both got newer models. I remembered something. I had synced our cloud drive to this machine years ago. Photos, documents, notes, it all used to back up automatically. I hadn't opened it in almost 2 years. It took 15 minutes to boot up and I spent the next 2 scanning through folders, trying to see if anything remained connected. The syncing icon flickered. Then it stopped. A new folder popped up. Houston_trip_March. I stared at it. She never mentioned a trip to Houston. Not in March. She said she was in Dallas then, some leadership summit or team building thing. But there it was. A folder named after a different city. And as I clicked into it, my hands cold and jittery, I knew whatever was inside would either confirm everything or crack me in half. The folder was small, only 6 images and 3 short videos, but they loaded slowly like the universe wanted to make me feel every ounce of what was coming. I leaned in closer, as if proximity could prepare me, as if being an inch from the screen would soften the blow. The first photo was of her. Lauren. My wife. She stood beside a rooftop pool, half-wrapped in a white hotel towel. Her hair was damp and curled at the ends, not the way it looks when she air-dries it at home, but how it looks when she's styled it. A drink in one hand, sunglasses perched on her head, and a wide smile that looked effortless. Not the forced, PR-ready grin she wore in our holiday cards, but the real one. The one she used to give me before the kids. Before the distance. Before whoever he was. She wasn't alone in the photo. The man beside her had his arm around her waist, low, in asterisk mate. He wore swim trunks and aviators, and his smile mirrored hers in tone. Relaxed. Familiar. His hand rested on the curve of her hip like it had been there many times before. I stared at them for a long time. This wasn't a candid photo someone had snuck from a distance. This was a posed picture. Intentional. Like 2 people who wanted to capture a memory they'd enjoy reliving later. The pool glistened behind them and the Houston skyline stretched out in the background, making the location undeniable. I clicked the metadata. Taken 4 weeks ago. March 16th. The same weekend Lauren had said she was in Dallas for a corporate retreat. A leadership building event that ran late into the nights, she'd said. No phones allowed during sessions. Everything highly confidential. She even brought home a branded pen and a packet of generic-looking notes to complete the illusion. The next image was a selfie, Lauren's arm extended, lips puckered slightly, the man kissing her cheek. Her eyes were closed. That tiny wrinkle at the corner of her mouth, the one I used to trace with my finger in bed, was barely visible. It hit me harder than it should have. They looked happy. That was the worst part. In those pictures, she looked like the version of her that I used to see. Not the one who checked out during conversations, who winced at my touch, who treated our home like a layover. No, this Lauren was present, alive, electrified. And she was giving that version of herself to someone else. The videos were worse. In one, she twirled barefoot on a balcony at night, drink in hand, her laughter rising above the city's noise. The man behind the camera said something I couldn't quite make out, low and muffled, but her response was clear. I haven't felt this free in years. Years. The exact duration of our slow unraveling. I didn't realize I was holding my breath until I felt lightheaded. I sat back in the chair and stared at the ceiling, blinking fast. My jaw clenched so tight it ached. There was no longer any doubt, no ambiguity, no space for rationalizations. This wasn't a flirtation, a misunderstanding, or a midlife whim. This was a betrayal. Full. Deliberate. Documented. And somehow that made it worse. That she'd immortalized it. That she hadn't even tried to hide it from her own devices. Either she was careless or she was confident I wouldn't look. Or maybe she didn't care if I did. That thought alone knocked the air out of me. I closed the laptop slowly like I was folding away something dangerous. My hands trembled slightly as I stood, unsure of what to do next. My legs felt weak, the same way they did the night Ella broke her arm and I had to carry her to the car while pretending I wasn't panicking. That same inner collapse, but now there was no hospital. No plan. No emergency contact to call. Just me. Alone. Drowning in something I never thought would be mine to navigate. I walked into the kitchen, opened the fridge, stared inside without seeing anything, and closed it again. The hum of the old motor filled the room, a low reminder that life would keep going even when your heart wants to pause. Then came the questions. How long? How many trips? Was he local, or was she going to him? Was Houston their spot, or just one of many? Did the kids know? Had they noticed the same things I had? Was I the only one trying to hold together a house she'd already mentally moved out of? I picked up my phone. Scrolled to her name. Hovered over the call button. But I didn't press it. Not yet. Because what could I say? What would I even ask? I already had the answers. Instead, I opened a new browser tab and searched for the Cypress Rooms reservation system. I found the booking, Lauren's email, her name, everything confirmed. It had been made a month ago, almost the same day the Houston trip happened. And there it was, table for two, special occasion. Special occasion. It was under her name. My birthday listed in the note. A reservation booked right after her weekend getaway with another man. I stood in the middle of the kitchen and felt something shift. Some tectonic part of me cracked quietly. This wasn't just about the affair. This was about planning. It was about intention. She made a reservation under my birthday. Scheduled it like a business meeting. All while looking me in the eye every day. Kissing the kids. Laughing at sitcoms. Folding laundry next to me. I looked around the house, suddenly seeing it differently. The pictures on the wall. The family calendar with color-coded chaos. The school artwork tacked to the fridge. It all felt like props in a play I didn't audition for. I had to do something. Not out of revenge, but out of necessity. She was living a double life. I had to stop pretending like I wasn't in it. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to every creak in the house like it might carry some kind of answer. Lauren didn't come home until after 2 a.m. I heard her heels click across the tile, the zipper of her purse, the quiet opening of our bedroom door. She thought I was asleep. She stood in the doorway for a few seconds. I could feel her eyes on me, maybe wondering if I'd ask where she'd been. But I didn't move. Didn't speak. I just listened to her breath, uneven and shallow, like she was still deciding how to act. Then she turned, left, and quietly closed the door. That's when I got out of bed. I had been preparing for this moment in fragments over the years, not because I ever expected this outcome, but because part of me always feared that life can change faster than you think. After my dad left when I was 12, my mom made a habit of saying, have a plan for the storm even if the sky looks clear. So I had one. In the back of my office closet, tucked behind dusty binders and old tax files, was a slim, black folder. I pulled it down, opened it on my desk, and looked through the documents, bank statements, insurance accounts, copies of birth certificates, and most importantly, a business card from a divorce lawyer I'd met 3 years ago during a cybersecurity audit. At the time, he was helping secure sensitive files for a high-profile separation case. We got to talking about digital exposure, family safeguards. Before I knew it, I'd asked for a card just in case, I said. We laughed, but he handed it to me with a look that said, better to have it and not need it. I needed it now. I took a breath and got to work. First, I accessed our joint accounts. We had 2 savings, 1 checking, and a shared credit card. I moved half the savings into a new individual account I'd opened 6 months ago under the advice of a financial podcast. Just in case. That phrase again. Just in case. I updated my direct deposit information with work and canceled the auto pay on the shared card. I didn't freeze her out completely. I wasn't trying to punish her. I was protecting myself. Then I moved to the insurance policies, home, auto, life. I removed her as the primary emergency contact and made sure my name was first on everything involving the kids. I updated passwords, added 2-factor authentication, and changed the recovery email on every shared account I could remember. It took hours. The sun was creeping through the blinds by the time I was done. The house felt different that morning. Lighter. Like I'd finally opened a window that had been sealed for years. Lauren was still asleep in the guest room. I could hear her soft breathing through the cracked door. The same woman who once stayed up all night nursing Ella's fever. The same woman who painted the nursery walls while singing off-key to Norah Jones. That woman was still there somewhere. But the version lying behind that door, she was not my partner. Not anymore. I called Jane, her sister, around 9 a.m. Hey, I said. I need your help. And I need you not to ask questions. Jane had always been more honest than Lauren, more grounded. She didn't press. Just asked when and where. Today, I said. Now, if possible. She showed up an hour later with 2 travel mugs of coffee and an empty SUV. We packed in silence. The goal wasn't to erase Lauren. It was to separate. Cleanly. Respectfully. Deliberately. I had already labeled boxes in advance. 1 for clothes, 1 for personal items, 1 for documents. We didn't touch her nightstand or her vanity, those were left for her. But everything else? Folded, wrapped, boxed, and sealed. Her books, her skincare arsenal, her perfumes, even her yoga mat that hadn't been unrolled in months. I didn't throw anything away. I wasn't angry. I was precise. Jane helped me carry the boxes downstairs and stack them neatly in the entryway like a curated exhibit of endings. She didn't speak until we were nearly done. You okay? She asked quietly. I paused. No. But I will be. She nodded. She doesn't know I'm here. I figured, I said. It's better that way. I didn't tell her about the photos or the videos or the fake business trips. I didn't have to. Jane's expression said she already suspected. Maybe even knew. Family senses things long before they're confirmed. By the afternoon, the master bedroom looked different. Emptier. Not hollow, but intentional. I replaced our framed wedding photo with one of the kids playing in the backyard, their faces sunlit and pure. I stripped the bed and replaced the duvet with a plain navy one. The kind you buy when you're not trying to impress anyone, just start fresh. I opened the windows and let the breeze roll through. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. The last thing I did was leave a letter on the bed. It wasn't angry or dramatic. Just a single sheet of paper. It said, "Lauren, your belongings are in the front hallway. The locks have been changed. You will find a legal document on the kitchen table outlining temporary custodial arrangements and property discussions. You may review it with counsel. Please do not enter the house unannounced going forward. The children are adjusting and need stability. You can text me if it's about them. Justin." I didn't sign it with love. I didn't sign it with bitterness either. Just a period. A sentence. A fact. When the sun began to dip and the sky turned that soft golden blue, I sat on the porch, coffee in hand, waiting. My heart wasn't racing. My hands weren't shaking. I was tired but solid. At 6:42 p.m., her car pulled into the driveway. She stepped out slowly, confusion creasing her face the moment she saw the boxes. Her eyes flicked to the porch, then to the front door where the smart lock's keypad glowed red. She tried her key. Nothing. She knocked once. Then again, harder. The kids were upstairs, headphones on. I'd timed it that way. I stood. She turned toward me, confused. Defensive. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice cracking. "You don't live here anymore," I said. Calm. Measured. She laughed short and sharp. "Are you serious?" "I'm very serious." Her eyes darted to the boxes, to Jane's SUV now parked a few houses down. "You're kicking me out?" "No," I replied. "You removed yourself a long time ago. I'm just following through." She didn't speak for a long time. Just stood there, taking in the view. Her life sorted and boxed. Her key useless? The flower pot by the door, an old ceramic one she'd hated and tossed, was back, now blooming. Like the house had rejected her absence and rebuilt itself. "You had this planned," she whispered. "No," I said honestly. "I hoped I'd never need it. But here we are." She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She just stood there, one hand still on her purse strap, like she wasn't sure if she should set it down or walk away. Then, slowly, she turned. Left the porch. And for the first time in months, I watched her go without feeling like I was the one being left behind. The doorbell rang at 9:03 a.m. on Monday, sharp. I was in the kitchen making breakfast for the kids, frozen waffles and apple slices, the kind of low-effort meal you make when routines are still stabilizing. The scent of maple syrup filled the house, and Mason was halfway through humming a song he'd made up about syrup boats when the chime broke the calm. I knew it was her. I'd half expected her not to come back. Part of me thought maybe she'd retreat, regroup, send a lawyer or a third party to handle everything. But no, there she was. Right on time, clutching a large leather purse that didn't match her outfit, her sunglasses perched on her head like she was stepping into a boutique, not a home she no longer owned. I opened the door without a word. Her face didn't register shock, not exactly. More like disorientation. Like someone who's returned to a familiar place only to find it rearranged. The first thing she noticed was the flower pot. The one she'd thrown away months ago in a fit of frustration, called it cheap and ugly. It now sat blooming by the door with deep purple petunias, freshly watered and defiant. Her eyes flicked to it with a pause, then drifted to the boxes lined neatly by the entryway. Labeled in my handwriting. Stacked like a moving company had done it. She stepped in cautiously, like the threshold might bite her. The kids peeked from the stairs. Ella was gripping the banister. Mason stood behind her, eyes wide. Neither ran to her. Neither said a word. "Hi," she said softly, like she was trying to remember how to speak to them. I'm here." They nodded in unison, polite but wary, like she was a substitute teacher instead of their mother. "Go eat," I said gently. "It's getting cold." They turned and padded back upstairs without a word. I didn't blame them. Kids are more perceptive than we give them credit for. They'd seen the cracks. They'd heard the late-night arguments. They knew the tension, the weird absences, the scent of lies in the air. Lauren moved further into the house, her heels muffled on the carpet runner. Her gaze darted around, taking everything in. The hallway was bare now, no wedding photo, no vacation snap *TS. The family portrait from 2 years ago, taken at the pumpkin patch, was gone. replaced with a framed drawing Mason made of our house, labeled in crayon, home. The master bedroom door was closed. She reached for it. I wouldn't, I said quietly. That's not your space anymore. She froze mid-step. She turned toward me, her eyes sharp. You changed everything. Not everything, I said. Just what I had to. She crossed her arms, then let them fall. I need to get a few more things. They're in the boxes, I replied. I went room by room. You can double-check if you want. She didn't move for a while. Just stood there in the entryway, staring at her own belongings like they were evidence in a case she was losing. Can we talk? She asked finally. In private? I gestured toward the dining table. We sat across from each other like strangers negotiating terms of surrender. Her fingers curled around the edges of her purse. This feels cold, hostile. It's not, I said. It's organized, controlled. She frowned. You froze the accounts. Yes. You changed the locks. Correct. You told the kids? I told them the truth they needed to hear. That we're separating. That we're focusing on giving them peace. She looked at me like she wanted to argue. Like she was searching for a foothold on a slope she never imagined sliding down. But the footholds were gone. She'd kicked them loose herself. You're not even angry, she said. I paused, then answered honestly. I was. Furious. Shattered. But now? I'm tired. And clarity feels better than rage. She glanced at the kitchen, where muffled laughter floated down the stairs. They're different. They're adjusting, I said. Kids are resilient. They just need consistency and honesty. Two things we haven't given them in a long time. She swallowed hard. I never wanted to hurt them. But you did, I said. You hurt all of us. A long silence stretched between us. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. I talked to a lawyer, she said. He said we should work out a custody plan before things escalate. I already have one drafted, I replied, sliding a manila folder across the table. 50-50. You'll have every other week. Holidays split fairly. No arguments. She opened it, scanned the first page. Her brows furrowed. You've really done your homework. I had time, I said. While you were away. She flinched. It wasn't all lies, Justin. I leaned back. No, just the ones that mattered. She nodded slowly, as if agreeing with something she didn't want to admit. I never planned for this to happen, she whispered. Planned or not, you followed through, I said. And now we're here. Another silence. This one heavier. Final. She looked down, then back up at me. Can I see the bedroom? One last time. I didn't move. No, I said gently. That part's done. She nodded again. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. She stood, straightened her purse strap, and walked toward the door. She paused there for a long moment, then reached out and touched the top box. Thank you for packing everything, she said. It's more considerate than I deserve. I didn't reply. She picked up the lightest box and opened the door. Outside, the sky was clear, the breeze steady. The world was moving on, indifferent to our unraveling. She stepped onto the porch and stood there for a beat. Just stood, like she was waiting for something. Maybe for me to call out, to ask her to stay, to offer some olive branch that would make this house hers again. But I said nothing. And after a moment, she walked down the steps and disappeared around the corner. Inside, the kids called out from upstairs. The syrup boats were sinking. They wanted more waffles. I took a deep breath, turned away from the door, and stepped back into the kitchen. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was honest. Monday morning, I sat in a narrow, wood-paneled office that smelled like old paper and stale coffee. Across from me was my attorney, a man with a calm voice and eyes that had seen every version of heartbreak the legal system had to offer. Lauren sat 2 chairs over, separated by more than just space. The evidence sat neatly organized in 2 binders. One for the financial discrepancies, hotel charges, trip receipts, restaurant bills tagged as team dinners, and the other for the digital trail. Screensh *TS, metadata, cloud backups. Her voice played through the tinny speaker of a recorder at one point, laughing over the sound of clinking glasses, saying things I couldn't unhear. She thinks he's clueless. One clip played. But it's so easy to get away with. He never asks questions. That he was me. The words were like being stabbed in slow motion, precision over brutality. But I didn't flinch. I didn't interrupt. My lawyer let the paper trail speak. And it did. Custody agreements were signed with minimal resistance. She didn't fight for the house. Her lawyer advised against it. There was too much documented. The infidelity, the misrepresentation, even the misuse of joint funds during the trips. She forfeited rights to equity, furniture, and any claim to the vehicles. We split the savings, but the rest? It was mine. I didn't want to humiliate her. I just wanted closure, structure, boundaries. By the end of it, the clerk stamped the final document, and the gavel might as well have been a full stop at the end of a long, broken sentence. That evening, I waited on the porch as Lauren returned for the last time. She looked different, smaller somehow, no makeup, flats instead of heels. She didn't knock, just stood there with her hands tucked in her coat pockets like she was trying to stay warm even though it wasn't cold. I handed her an envelope. She opened it slowly. Inside was a printed message from one of her cloud backups. A message she'd sent to him during their Houston trip. He believes everything I say. It's almost cute. I could tell him I'm on the moon and he'd make me dinner when I land. Underneath, in my handwriting, I'd written, "Not anymore." She read it. Once. Twice. Then she stepped back, as if the paper itself had weight. Her voice cracked. "You went looking." "No," I said. "It was already there. You just never cared if I saw it." She didn't reply, just nodded and picked up her last suitcase. No makeup, no excuses, no script. She turned toward the street barefoot, shoes dangling from one hand, the suitcase dragging behind her like it didn't want to follow. Her figure blurred as she walked away. Not into traffic, not into a cab, just into space. Aimless. The kids were watching a movie in the living room, popcorn on their laps. They didn't look up as the front door quietly closed behind her. She didn't ask to come back in, and I didn't open the door. She'd become a shadow, one that no longer belonged in our picture.